So Councillor Day joined us.
Thank you, Chief. Hi, Bev. We'll call the regular council meeting in the town of Granby Westfield to order. And before I move to item 2, I would like everyone who's with us this evening to meet Granby Westfield's newest employee. This is Nicole Kelly. She is a new administrative assistant and will be collecting all of the minutes from all of our public meetings moving forward. The item 2.
Record of attendance.
Let the record reflect full council is in attendance. Item 3, please.
Approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions.
Make a motion to adopt the order of business as presented.
Second it.
On the question?
I just asked that we add, item number 19, special meeting of council May 7th.
Let's make it 18A, please.
18A?
Yes, we have a 19. So let's make it 18A, special council meeting.
So moved.
Is that okay with the mover?
Yes.
And the seconder? Councillor Evans?
Yes.
Yes. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Your item is 4, please.
Disclosure of conflict of interest.
Is there any? There being none, we'll move to item 5, please.
Public hearings.
None. And item 6?
Public presentations. The Cenotaph upgrade. Corey Ryan.
Corey, I see you out there. Good to have you. And you're on mute.
Best presentation.
Hey.
There we go,
Hey,
Corey.
How's that? Okay, perfect.
That's good for
I'm good
you.
now. I'm good now. Yeah.
Glad you could join us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for letting me present tonight. And the purpose of my presentation is really an upgrade or revitalization of the monument, the Cenotaph at the end, or Peace Park at the end of Wolfsbrook and River Valley Drive. So really, it comes to our, it's a project part of our Honor Our Veterans project that we started about 5 years ago, which started with the veterans banners in Grand Bay. So it mostly came evident to us this year during our Remembrance Day ceremony that we had at the Cenotaph, just that it maybe needed an upgrade or revitalization more to recognize past and current veterans of the Canadian Forces. So the background to our team, and some of you may not know, is about 5 years ago, we started the committee Honor Our Veterans, Granby Westfield, where we were, our primary goal at that time was to start the veterans banners. And Ryan's Councillor Snodgrass was on our team at that time as well. We had our goal initially was to have 100 banners in Granby Westfield, in which we quickly got to there. Right now we have 100, and with our list this year, we're probably going to get up to about 125, hopefully extending out to the flashing light this year. I met with NB Power this morning to start the process of identifying more poles. That's part of our background, and then our other part of that was to always use those to try to get those brackets used for other things, which we successfully did last year with the Canada and New Brunswick flags on the poles. This year, it looks like we're going to be using the Canada and New Brunswick flags and graduate banners throughout Granby Westfield.
Corey, I know, can I interrupt you? I know you were meeting with Amy Beto on that project.
Yes.
And I know that Councillor Evans supplied a list for numbers purposes. Mm-hmm. Do we have enough brackets to meet the needs of celebrating the graduates of Granby Westfield?
We're pretty close, and that's kind of why one of my purposes of meeting with NB Power today was to get more brackets on, so that we could meet that demand. Plus, we'd still kind of like to see some Canada, New Brunswick, and Granby Westfield flags intermixed with that throughout the whole stretch of the town. So, and we'll need more brackets this fall for veterans banners. So we'll get there for sure, Grace. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you. So on that project, when we started, the primary purpose was to recognize veterans, okay? Which I think we did very well, because and kind of a measure of that, of how well it recognized veterans, was prior to starting the project. We started in 2016. So prior to that, with the Poppy Fund, that I'm the Poppy chair as well in Granby Westfield. So up until 2016, throughout the Poppy Fund, every year through wreaths and the Poppy boxes that we put throughout Granby Westfield, our net revenue was about $3,000 to $3,500 a year. And that money goes directly to veterans and projects within Granby Westfield area, bursaries to students, supporting the schools on some things like PALS projects. 2015, we donated, I think, around $3,500 to the Granby Westfield Fire Department for Jaws of Life. So that comes from the Poppy Fund. So looking at a measurable thing that this project had recognized veterans. So prior to 2016, net revenue about $3,500 on the Poppy Fund. 2016, we start the Veterans Banner Project. Every year consistently, we've pretty well doubled our net revenue to the Poppy Fund, right?
Awesome.
So that is really a measurable recognition of veterans, right? So 3,500, and then in 2016 was 6,300, and then again about the same. 2018 was 7,000. 2019 7,300, right? So amazing recognition of veterans. So this just kind of seems like another step, I guess, to recognize veterans and to upgrade our cenotaph to recognize past and current veterans. So really, I'm looking at 2021 now. So what we did as a committee was we submitted a grant to CMEI, Crane Mountain, in early February, asking that if for a approval from CMEI for a grant to investigate conceptual diagrams of what a new cenotaph or peace parrot could look like or could be updated to. We got that approval from CMEI at around $3,000, a little over $3,000 that they would approve to have an artist conceptual diagram or several done. Okay. So from there, we're kind of looking at 2021 as a phase one of our project. And the phase one, which we're kind of looking at, would be the end of August of this year to report back to the town on what a upgrade or revitalization would look like. And really the phase one of this up until this whole year is really investigational and planning. Okay, there's no money being spent. It's just investigational and planning. So kind of what our thought really is asking for the current council for your permission to, one is to accept the fact with CMEI that we can move forward after a new council is elected. Really no movement right now until a new council comes in and gets their feet under them. And our tentative plan for 2021 up until the end of August when we report back to the town, and the kind of the end of August for reporting back to the town would be so that if the town wanted to consider this in financial implications, it's there for September for budget talks in the fall, really. Okay. So our tentative plan would be no movement until a new council, and end of June, early July would be for us to really, after meeting with the new council and town and having thoughts from the Legion and our team, would be to go back to the architect to come up with some conceptual diagrams. After that would be any public consultation of what other veterans or the public would like to see at the Peace Park. And I guess one of the things we want to point out too is that it's not to change or what has already been done at the Peace Park. Really, the 13 shrubs, the maple trees that all go along the walkway, the cross that is on the walkway. Those are all great things that have been done. We just want to enhance a few more things to recognize veterans, newer veterans, and all veterans, and maybe that's more monuments. World War I, World War II, different monuments, Afghanistan, Korea, that maybe family members can have their family member engraved on a monument, right? Going forward.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Corey, you and I had talked about that, actually,
Yeah.
acknowledging the other wars and the potential for actually, as you indicated, engraving those names on there and using that really in another way as a fundraiser, much the same as they did at River Valley Community Center through the purchase of the tiles.
For sure. And even the engraving of names, like you said, Grace, is the fundraiser. So that wouldn't come as a cost to, the Legion, the town. That would be something that the family member, whoever wanted to get engraved, would have to, pay for that as a donation going forward, for sure.
Absolutely.
So that was really the most. And I guess one of the other, couple of key points I want to mention as well is, we look at this as a multi-year project. Several years, maybe even looking at 2022 may just be laying the groundwork, right? If there's groundwork that needs to be done for further stones and further monuments, and then going forward that way. So not a 1 year, maybe no commitment from the town as far as money either, right? That's part of our planning phase after September for our team would be to looking at other grants, whether, CMEI again next year, the Regional Development Corporation, there's the Canadian Peacekeepers Association, and even Legion itself or other public partners that may want to donate towards a monument or a bench or something like that. And one of the other key thing is I'd like to, if council is okay with us, going forward, waiting till new council gets in and start the process with them, one thing that we would ask is too, that the new council would, appoint a liaison, I guess. So between our veterans committee and town council would be a liaison between the two of us to talk.
That makes perfect sense, Corey. And look, I guess I want to ask you first, if council has questions, are you open to answering them?
Oh, certainly, yes, yeah.
Council, does anyone have any questions? Deputy Mayor Likely, please.
Yes. First of all, Corey, thank you very much for your dedication to the community and all the good work you do. Very much appreciate it. When I look at the compliments I get about the town, there's a lot of them, but one of the number one things that we get are the Christmas decorations that we used to have in front of our town hall and at the Cenotaph site. Now we've lost the pine trees at the other site, so now we've only got the big trees down where my only request would be, I would love to, I don't think we want to mess with that. That is thing. Okay, good. Yeah. I read your material and I wasn't 100% sure that you were it sounded like you may want to cut those trees down, but
No, not at all. Not at all. No.
Well, I'm good then with the whole project. You keep going, and good luck, and we'll be in touch.
And even no change to the Christmas lights. Everybody loves them. I know, those are a highlight to our kids every year too. So it's not everybody loves that as part of the start of that season as well, for sure.
Good.
Thank you, Corey. Councillor Snodgrass?
Yeah, I'll echo, Deputy Mayor Likely's comments. Corey, you've done a fantastic job of embracing this community. You've brought forward a lot of really good ideas, veteran banners being one, which I was, fortunate enough to serve with you and Gary and the rest of the group, Jim and Kaylee, or Caitlin, sorry. One thing I would say, like to Mike's point too, that was my first concern. I think one of the packages I read there was some discussion around trees. I was like, oh no.
No.
But listen, I think there's some really good concept sketches in there. And I think maybe Jim Balcom might have did one as well that looked really.
He did. He had a few ideas on a piece of paper there. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So I think there's some really good opportunities to leverage recognizing the veterans, especially the additional wars and other members that have served over the years. I think that's a great idea. And, obviously we're an outgoing council, or a number of us are. So, all we can do at this point is, I guess what I can do is offer my support for the project in principle, and hope that the future council carries on the task. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey.
Councillor Evans?
No, I just thank you, Corey, and anything we do for the veterans and make the awareness greater, I think it's a good thing for the town of Granby Westfield.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Is that it? Look, I just wanted to say, Corey, it was, I think I did mention it to you, the Peace Park was installed in the first time I was elected in 1990. I was elected in 92, and I think that was done by Carol Stokes, was the one who initiated that in 1993. She did a great job, and it lives. We just had to replace all those trees because they had fallen apart. So that's kind of indicative of having a refresh, I think. So I too want to wish you all the best. Council, you have for consideration a motion there to accompany this presentation.
Are there only 3 councillors here this evening?
No, everyone is here.
Oh, well, okay. I just thought I'd check because you asked for other people to speak and you never asked.
They put up their hands, Councillor Day?
Well, my hand's been up for quite a while.
Your hand's out of the view. Your hand's out of view.
We didn't see it.
Oh, well, and that's okay. No problem.
Your hand's out of view. Sorry, Councillor Day. So is someone going to move forward with the motion?
Trying to find the motion, Your Worship.
Oh, that can't be too.
There's a motion that the town of Granby Westfield approve the phase 1 renewal of the cenotaph with the following conditions. The concepts developed reflect past development of the cenotaph, that the trees be retained if possible, that the integrity of the Peace Park be preserved, and that the council approve any concepts developed through phase 1. Is anyone willing to make that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Is there a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Snodgrass. On the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Thanks again, Corey.
Thank you very much.
Your item is 7, particularly 7.1.
Minutes of regular council meeting of April 12th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to adopt as presented with the correction, the spelling in the minutes at the top. It says regular council. It's missing the I. Minor correction.
Second it.
And further, Deputy Mayor Likely, is that where we had to make a correction too with respect to quarterly payments, I think, on
Yes,
one of your items?
Yeah, the CAO has corrected that, I believe.
Oh, good. Perfect. Thank you. So can we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented with that small change on the spelling of council on the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Your item is 7.2, please.
PAC minutes, April 6th, 2021.
I'll move to receive and file.
Second it.
On the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. And your item is 8, please.
Bills for payment.
I'll make a motion that we authorize bills for payment in the amount of $299,989.08.
Second it.
On the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Your item is 9, please.
Consent agenda.
There is none until next month. Your item is 10, particularly 10.1.
Cenotaph upgrade.
You dealt with that.
That's been dealt with under the public presentation, and so then we'll move to item 10.2, please.
RVCC grant request.
So you have, council, in your package, recommendation from your CAO with respect to how that moves forward. Is there someone willing to make the motion?
I can't see the motion, unfortunately, on my computer.
Read it.
Yeah, perhaps we could have the CAO read it, please.
That the council of the town of Granby Westfield authorize the immediate release of of program funding to the River Valley Community Center for recreation programming at the new River Valley Youth Center. Up to $25,800 is available for 2021. It is to be distributed on a quarterly basis on the condition per Section 102 of the Local Governance Act that the board of the River Valley Community Center demonstrate that the board is entirely composed of Town of Granby Westfield residents.
Is there someone willing to make that motion? Councillor Bailman, you're our appointee.
I'll motion that.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. On the question,
Well,
Councillor Evans, please.
I just want to go on the record that I'm not comfortable with the second part of that. If everyone having to serve on the board has to be within Town of Granby Westfield residents. I believe it's a regional community center. I know our funding partners left us, but some of those residents are big supporters and can make an impact on the RVCC. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Day?
I totally support Councillor Evans on this, because when we did the hockey and there was a hockey issue with St. John, we took the high road, and we have always supported children in this community. And I'm sorry, but this is a sad way to deal with children who are struggling with COVID, and we want the programming here for them.
There's nothing about this motion that limits the programming. Councillor Snodgrass?
Yeah, I echo Councillor Evans' concern. As I mentioned, I have concerns with the ramifications of limiting the board to just the community of Granby Westfield. I do fully support the idea of, obviously having proportional representation on that committee. I do not believe, that the funding community should be a minority on that group. The residents that contribute to the tax base, that contribute to that facility, should definitely have an outweighted voice. My concern is that we're going to limit, potentially really good volunteers and people that could serve that committee and do it well. I don't know. I'm pretty torn on that part of the motion, to be perfectly honest.
Thank you. Is there anything more? So you have before you a motion that involves providing the funding. Let's call the full vote on the motion. Oh, sorry.
Worship. Sorry,
Yes, Councillor Snodgrass.
Yeah, just so I could jump into, but I do also want to correct, there is nothing in this motion that's going to take away from the children. It's talking about the governance of the facility and the board representation. So, a vote in favor of it is not necessarily voting against, access to the facility by, children or residents that live outside of the community. That's not accurate.
Thank you, Councillor Snodgrass. I think it's also important to acknowledge that, to your point, the town of Granby Westfield has, of course, always been open to that, because that's how we were originally built, was with through funding contributions determined your amount of votes on the board. And so certainly no one is against that. Absolutely. We're looking for good people for service all the time. On the question. Oh, sorry, Councillor Evans?
Yeah, the only thing I just wanted to add I'm the belief if this motion fails here tonight, doesn't fail, I'm okay with most of them, like the funding, and then ensuring that the board is made up with the majority of Granby Westfield, so that we make sure we have the strongest voice as the funder. But as it's presented now, I'm not willing to support.
So on the question, we're going to call the vote. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded?
Nay.
Okay.
So the motion is defeated. So would you like to make a different motion to address the funding component of the youth center? Thank you, Councillor Evans.
I'd say that the Council of Granby Westfield authorized the immediate release of program funding to River Valley Community Center for recreation programming at the new River Valley Youth Center. Up to $25,800 is available in 2021 and to be distributed on a quarterly basis on the I could say on the condition per Section 102 Local Governance Act, the Board of River Valley Community Center demonstrate that the board is the majority of Town of Granby Westfield residents.
Second it.
Thank you. On the question, I think this speaks to everyone's concerns on the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion's fully carried. And the item is 11. 11.1 particularly, Chief, can you let in Tracy Sewell, please? I believe she's the identified spokesperson on behalf of Shannon Road.
Your worship, yes, I'm here.
Yes? I'm sorry, it says Malcolm Marwick under your name.
Yeah.
Is that you, Tracy?
Yeah, it is. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Tracy, I think the CAO has provided you with some rules for tonight. You have 10 minutes and I want you to know that council has all of the comments and things that have been captured from you in their package.
Okay.
So please, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you. Your worship, Mayor Grace Loge and dear council members and fellow residents, and thank you very much for taking the time and hearing me today. I am the home and property owner, as you know, at 96 Shannon Road, and neighbors and I have very valid and reasonable concerns about the proposed subdivision development Douglas Estates, which is adjacent to Shannon Road in Grand Bay. Given the serious negative consequences that may likely occur to existing homeowners and have been occurring in the area, including but not limited to water damage to our properties and homes that have been documented with the PAC, we would like to request a pause of any development approval, including proposed right-of-ways and variances, until all reasonable homeowner and interested parties, as well as the town's very own PAC members' recommendations, have all been allayed. That meeting from the PAC record, as you know, of Monday night's meeting was April 19th. And their firm recommendation was that they wanted to make sure that a structural engineered water drainage plan was in place prior to further development or variances being approved. And those of us that have been contacted by the town of Grand Bay and notified of the developer's requests and plans we have concerns, and a majority of us have replied, making our positions very known. We have submitted a petition with numerous resident signatures, not limited to numerous letters from respectable, reasonable residents who have also participated in person during the PAC meetings and expressing solidly disapproving, voicing concerns with what has taken place thus far. Mr. Ward's deforestation, and we just do not support the proposal right now, the way that it is, without a structural engineering drainage plan in place. We believe that it would not only leave the town residents of Shannon Road in a very vulnerable, negative, decimated state, but also Blueberry Hill would have a serious impact to it, contrary to what the developer has implied. It leaves it in a very vulnerable shock of erosion, and where it's such a sensitive habitat in harm's way, but plausibly even resulting in a perpetual financial burden to the town of Grand Bay, with potential financial strains on road structure not being limited to asphalt repair, ditch and culvert repairs continually, while trying to keep up with the volume of water now coursing through Mr. Ward's land and onto ours. It's also impeding on the town's roads and even to the St. John River. Many culverts in the area are already deteriorating and showing signs of erosion. And the bottom portions of the retaining walls, even at the Henderson Brook Bridge, is even failing. I really don't know what more to say, but I do know that I just wanted to really kind of emphasize some of the common threads in people's, not to be completely redundant of things, but like homeowners at 87 Shannon Road, Mr. Colin Perry had stated in one of his letters that the town of Grand Bay is fully aware that numerous complaints and an engineering study was done, completed of the area well before the deforestation had even taken place by the developer. And apparently, by what Mr. Perry said, the study states that the drainage control for the area is very insufficient for the rainfall and even the runoff that we get in the area prior to the deforestation. That 50 millimeters of rain in 24 hours events are becoming, these weather events are becoming more and more frequent. And that area gets a crazy amount of rains and winds, and it's evident as well. In Linda and John Casey's letter to the town, they want to guarantee that the town can guarantee the quality and quantity of our water supply, or alternatively to transfer the responsibility to whomever the developer of the land is. We have a fair amount of very educated and respectively in their fields, that they know what they're talking about when they come onto the land and say that there's been a change in the ecosystem since the deforestation has taken place. It's 8 acres of land that has been abundantly deforested. So one tree being uprooted impacts and all the other properties with an abundance of water at a very fast volume. So one of our residents on Shannon Road, she is actually in the department, within the Department of Environment, and she has noted in her letters several things about the Migratory Birds Convention Act, and I'm sure that you guys have taken the time to read about that. And most of the deforestation that had taken place was during a time when these birds would have been nesting. And I don't think 8 acres worth of trees were checked for that. I really don't feel that was a competent thing. We don't believe that Wawa permits were taken out or at the developers, during the developers' presentation to the PAC as well as ourselves, even though it was a nice presentation and all, it really didn't, it implied that Wawa permits and Bedell permits were not necessary. However, one of our homeowners at 71 Shannon Road said that although not formally assessed, primarily observation, the preliminary observation indicates that the likely presence of wetland within this PID in an area that has been partially harvested and heavily rutted, depending on the amount of wetland habitat present and whether it's continuous or a water course, may require a consultation with the Source and Surface Water Management Branch with the New Brunswick Department of Environment and Local Government. It was recommended. So improperly managed wetland habitat can lead to many issues and having a severe negative impact on habitats and properties. Also, I think she had noted in her letter that one of the last undeveloped properties is New Brunswick's Blueberry Hill Nature Preserve, and it supports a variety of ecosystems and walking trails. The ecology of the nature preserve benefits from being adjacent to intact, undeveloped forests to both the north and the south. Removal of this habitat could lead to further habitat fragmentation for wildlife in the area and have a negative edge effect on Blueberry Hill Nature Preserve, causing major erosion to it as well. And that was by Crystal Matheson, 71 Shannon Road.
I do want to assure you, Tracy, that we've all of these letters.
We've all taken time to read them. Yeah,
and they're all in our package. I just want you to know that we all have every one of them.
Yeah, and you've all taken the time to. We did forward a video from a rain event that had taken place on April 1st. Right. And so it does show that it's not a small little bit of water trickling down from the back of Blueberry Hill down onto my property and other neighboring properties. It's quite a large volume of water, and it's almost like a rushing ravine coming from all multiple angles. And I do firmly believe there are more permits that are required, where 3/4 of the land, even though they say that it doesn't require, that we were told by Bryce and possibly Mr. Taylor that it didn't require a permit. I think further exploration into that would say that the survey stake that is right on the corner of my property falls in St. John, the city of St. John territory, and very well may require permits if there's any digging and such.
Thank you for that, Tracy. We do have some new information from the city of St. John too that will come forward. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
We do.
Okay. And I just want you to know that this is the biggest investment. All our homes are the biggest investment that we will ever make. And that we rely on a dutiful responsibility of the town council respectfully to help protect us being taxpayers. I know I myself have never had any issues or had to come to the town before. I've owned my home since 2005. And I really feel that this is a time to set a precedent. I know that development is very necessary in Grand Bay, but I really do believe that if, that we do need to all come to
Is that 10 minutes? Nicole?
we have to really all come together and make sure that the town really enforces and sets precedent on these developers, that we trust the town, the PAC members' recommendations with getting a structural engineer water drainage in place and execute it to its fullest to protect residents that are already existing, as well as maybe, for future developers and homeowners and building owners.
Thank you very much, Tracy, for your thoughts and for all of the participation from the residents down on Shannon Road. And I noticed that your petition went much further than Shannon Road up on Bayview. So thank you to all of those who participated as well. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Council, I think we can move together. Are there any questions of Tracy by any of you, council? Councillor Evans, please.
Tracy, I'm just wondering what you feel is unique about your area versus anybody else that's having someone clear land beside them, has running water going through the yard. Like, I live down below the big hills on Mullah and Epworth. I get all the hills from June Ave and all that stuff comes down through the back of my property and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering what's different about your situation than all the others.
It's not controlled. Like, I believe if you're and it's marsh, it's very soft. Anybody that's taken the time to walk the area knows as soon as they get out there and they start walking, there's a notable difference. And all the PAC members that took the time to come down, they all notably said that's the reason why they're suggesting that a drainage plan, a structural engineering plan is necessary so it doesn't come back on the town. It is the volume of water that's coming down. Did you take the time to, I can't ask any questions, sorry.
No, that's right.
So it is a very delicate piece of land that's not drying out. And where Blueberry Hill is, you can't do anything with Blueberry Hill. So anybody that wanted to develop the land, they would, I'm not sure, but whether the Department of Natural Resources or Wawa would even allow them to cut in past the survey stake to even try to mitigate the abundance of the deep swales that have already gone. Like, I really implore you to come and walk the land, and you'll know exactly.
I've been down there often. I know that I'm very familiar with the area.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Tracy. Is there any other questions for Tracy?
Well, Your Worship, I don't know. I guess, it's a bit of a question. So I think, Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, did I hear you say that Mr. Perry had indicated that there was water drainage issues prior to the clear cutting?
Not
Did I hear that right?
and not to the extent that it is now. Like he's saying, even now since the deforestation has happened, that there was an engineer plan with the town of Grand Bay. That was an engineering study with the impact of water. And even at that time, the structural things that are in place now is not even, it's not looking after what it definitely is not looking after or up to speed to what it should be. It's just not, the increased water flow, it can't handle it. It's almost up at a 50 millimeter rainfall. It was almost roadside. And that was only with 25 to 35 millimeters of rain when that video was taken.
But that was in a half-hour span, is that correct? Because I thought when I read your email, was it you?
Yeah, that video was taken between a full half hour worth at 1 o'clock. So at 1 p.m. On April 1st, at least 25 to 30 millimeters only at that time.
Like that's a significant rain event.
Yeah, but at the same time, not that, I don't think the ditches around Grand Bay were that bad to ours. I drove around that day.
Right. And I believe, and just so you're aware, I've been very engaged in this issue over the last year or so since I've become aware of it. And I've watched both PAC meetings. I've listened to all your comments. I've watched that video start to finish. I've asked a lot of pointed questions to our staff. And, the challenge that we have as a council is we're trying to balance growth, as you alluded to in your comments, with, ensuring that we're not, causing a situation that's going to become worse for you.
Yeah.
What I've become aware of is the fact that it's not common for drainage plans to be a consideration during this process of considering a subdivision plan. That would usually become part of the building permit process, is my understanding. Right. And that anyone applying for a building permit would have to demonstrate that they're ensuring that there'd be adequate drainage off the property. They can't dump the water on your land.
This developer is kind of made ruts with his excavator in through my land. And that's, and it's even causing more of a hindrance to my property.
On your property?
Yes. I've had to dig a 3-foot ditch with a berm to handle the water from impacting my home. There was still frost in the ground during that. There was ice even in the video on that. So the surface water, as well as the water rushing over down onto my property through his, was like a waterfall coming down. It collapsed even the little bridgeway that I made. It's a lot of water. That's the video that I saw. Was that your video? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
It's a lot of water.
Are there any other questions for Tracy? Ryan, are you still have questions?
No, just basically wanted to I guess to assure them that, we've fully thought this through. We're listening to all sides of everything. It's a challenge to try and find the middle ground and find, to meet the goals of the community to grow and also ensure that we're not putting people in a bad situation. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Snodgrass. Are there any other questions for Tracy?
I got one.
Councillor Bailmans?
Well, Mr. Bryce offered a swale. Would that help him more, Tracy, or would that take the water away?
No, it would not. A swale would fill in one season. I strongly find that the reasonable recommendation of your town's PAC committee members to be very fair and reasonable. I'm not against development as long as it's going to be done properly. And a swale would not hold. I had 2 natural swales in my yard, and now it's a 3-foot ditch with a berm because it can't handle the water that has happened, that's been inflicted on my property from the deforestation taking place. And it's widening all the way down.
But I noticed a lot of ruts from up Blueberry Hill coming down off Blueberry Hill. A lot of ruts making water from Blueberry Hill.
Yeah, because before it used to have the trees snug in, holding it all together, just like Crystal said. Once you take down all those trees from that hill, then the water is just going to come down. There's no root system to hold anything in place anymore. So the water is just wild. And in one season, in one fall, you could have, 5 rain events, and that's enough to cause, my garage floor to crack and the water coming up through the driveway like a volcano. And it's not just my driveway, it's my neighbors beside me and our land. I had grass in my backyard. It's all moss now and wetland grass. And I've had.
Thank you, Tracy. Do we have any other questions for Tracy? I want to keep this moving along. Are there any other questions for Tracy? Thank you. Then we're going to move on to item 7.2 or 11.2. I'm sorry.
Shannon Road, Bryce Ward.
Mr. Ward, you're with us?
Yes, I am, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Would you like to put forward your position as well, please?
I think I've mostly addressed the concerns in the report that I put together for the PAC Council members, as well as Mr. Taylor. I more or less wanted to be here for questions. I would like to speak to the topic of water. From the get-go, I've offered help to the residents. I've been willing to work with them with their concerns. I spent 2 days compiling the report, addressing their concerns. To date, I've yet to have anybody reach out to me and say, hey, listen, can we have a conversation? I've got some water issues in my backyard. That conversation has never taken place. I've never received any phone calls or messages of the sort. I live on a hill in Quispam, and a couple of years ago, the road drainage backed up, came down through my property. I can appreciate the water concerns. I genuinely can. But I don't know what more I can do other than offer services to help these residents. I don't believe it's anything that I've done. However, I am willing to do something for them. In terms of a drainage plan, the drainage plan it ultimately is going to be swales. It's going to redirect the water from the hill into the existing channels. I don't know what else I can offer. I know one of the houses next to Miss Sewell's place on the hill, they did some driveway changes. At the same time, it's actually detailed in your report from Mr. Taylor on the dated the 15th. It has some aerial views that shows the changes that were made that would be up higher. Miss Sewell is at the bottom of what I would call a compound slope. So she gets it unfortunately from both sides. So I can only control water from my side. I can't control it from the other side, the other property. So there have been some changes there, and those changes were made in 2019. In no way am I trying to pass the buck or responsibility on that. I don't believe it's anything that I've done, but I more or less wanted to be here just to answer questions. So if anybody has any questions, I'm open.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. I'll advise you too, the same as I did Ms. Sewell, that council has seen all of your conversation back and forth with PAC and with Mr. Taylor. We've had it for our review all weekend. Okay. Council, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Ward? Any? Thank you, Mr. Ward, very much. David, I think I'll ask you here, David, do you want to just give us an overview so we can have, if you don't mind, an understanding of your recommendation to PAC, please?
For PAC, the issue before them was the reduction of the lot frontage. So the 4 potential lots would have 50 feet of frontage on the road, whereas a lot of 75 feet could actually build a home on that frontage. So this 50-foot frontage would just have the individual driveways. So PAC had to deal with the variance request. They did also consider a setback between those two properties, which wouldn't actually fall into the zoning bylaws. typically the frontage on a lot is 25 feet. So this gives at least 50 feet between houses in front of them on Shanna Road. And they also had to deal with the land for public purposes that would be required for creating the 3 new lots.
Thank you, David. And that is triggered because of the subdivision,
Right.
the land for public purposes.
Subdivision bylaw, yeah.
Thank you. Council, I guess I would like for you to perhaps forward the information from the packages through to your thinking on item 15.7, where we will finally deal with this item. Would someone move that, please?
So moved.
Thank you. We have Councillor Snodgrass and Councillor Evans on the question. On the question, anything further? I guess I think I want it to be clear because in a lot of there seems to be a lot of confusion from the homeowners down there that we're approving a development. We're not approving a development. That is not what went to PAC. What went to PAC was consideration of a variance, period, full stop. Then there was a second one to consider a subdivision, which triggered the land for public purposes and what that would be in cash in lieu of that land for public purposes. That is what PAC was tasked with. It had nothing to do with development approval, so there was no development approval asked for, nor was it necessary. In fact, you should know that property, 8 acres, would, without coming to council, except for the provision of streets and civic numbering and poles and things like that, I mean, they wouldn't have to come to council except for that, because if you meet all of the conditions of our subdivision bylaws and our building bylaws and all of that, it doesn't have to come. We want homes in the town of Granby Westfield, and if they meet all our policies and bylaws, that's good news for all of us, we think. If it requires a review, that can happen at a later point if something's seen that triggers that. But I just wanted to be clear that what PAC was asked to deal with was a variance. That was all. There's no development approval when people are, I see it in a lot of your correspondence. The development approval should be canceled. There is no development approval even being considered, nor was PAC asked to consider that. So I want to make that known. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded?
It's in the letter from
Motion is
David
carried.
Taylor.
I'm sorry, who's talking?
Sorry, it's Malcolm Marwick.
I'm sorry,
letter
Mr. Warwick. We're not having conversation after this. We just finished the public portion. In fact, we're moving to item 12, please.
Are you going to discuss your conflict of interest?
Oh, my God.
No, I'm not actually, because I don't have one. If I'd have had one, I would have declared it. Thank you.
Right,
I would
but
ask the
Ben
moderator,
is your
please,
nephew?
could I have that? What's that? He's not Mr. Ward.
He
Miss,
is in business.
would you ask the moderator, please? We're not losing control of this meeting. The item is 12, please.
Petition, Shannon Road subdivision.
So, council, in your package, you have a petition I referred to earlier, which has a number of signatures on it from people expressing many of the same concerns that our first presenter did, Ms. Sewell. So, would someone like to forward that for consideration to item 15.7.2, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Seconded by Councillor Evans. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Your item is 13, please.
Bylaws.
There are none. Item 14.
Notice of motion.
Are there any? There being none, we're going to move to item 15, particularly 15.1.
First quarter financial report.
So, council, in your package, you have a financial condition of this community up to April 13th, John, I think.
Yes, something like that.
That in order to capture the financial situation of the town before we all leave office. So there's a motion there for your consideration, but I think we would like to, perhaps, John, you could speak to the content. Are you?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit to it.
Please do.
So one of the first things is we received funding from the province regarding COVID-19, and that's made a big boost. That contributed almost $270,000, and we're actually in a surplus in revenue right now to the tune of $290,000. Sculpture is probably going to be deferred for another year.
Sculpture will be deferred until 2022.
That's right. And we've also saved money on a new employee as well. Another item that we see here is snow control, which hasn't been finished yet. And anyways, we're on track. And basically, we're about even. Let me jig up the other report here, where I think I made more notes. Let me see. Number one here, website development. We neglected to carry that over from 2020, so that is in excess right now. And then when you look at the management plan, that was incorrectly entered at one point, and through a journal entry approved by David, that was moved. The third, I think there's 4 notes altogether. The third note, if I can find it, flood control, we received money from the 2018, and so that's not been accounted for. And then the fourth one, it's down towards the end. Where is it? Playground equipment. Some was ordered, but it wasn't completed in 2020. It's been carried over.
Thank you, John. So could I have a motion, council, please? Councillor Snodgrass, do you have a, oh, sorry, I thought you had a question or a motion?
Nope. I have a motion that the Council of Granby Westfield receive and file the General Revenue Operating Fund first quarter financial report as presented.
Second.
On the question. So we leave the books in good shape as we depart, everybody. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion's carried. And your item is 15.2, please.
Strategic plan review.
So you have in your
Receive and
kits.
file.
Oh, okay. Do we have a motion to receive and file? Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you. On the question, John, do you want to go through the strategic plan, please? It's progress, I should say. Everything's on target, by the way. CAO, thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I don't think everything is on target.
Some are complete.
Well, a lot are, yes, and we're glad for that. Just an update on the communication plan. On Thursday, I interviewed a UMBSJ student for communications, and I learned first thing this morning that that student who I offered the intern position to has accepted, and she'll be starting in the middle of May. No, we have to meet to fix the exact date, and that we'll be meeting. So that is now definitely on target. And just a reminder for council that one of the things we talked about is strengthening our partnership with UMBSJ. We're on track. We have an MBA student who'll be working with us for our long-term capital projects. We have our communication student intern. And again, those are both learning experiences. And then through the federal government, we're expecting a graduate student to do a water security study for us.
Is that student been identified yet, John?
No, we're not going to learn who that student is until May. So I think the last time I corresponded with MITAC, which is the agency of the federal government that oversees that program, that she was expecting the middle to the third week of May that would be worked out. And again, council, that's not something I control. We've been awarded the grant money. So it basically doubles our investment, and then we get the use of a PhD student. The only stuff that I wish was further along for council is the new website.
Yeah.
And being able to roll out the new corporate identity. These are things that council approved in the budget, and separately last fall. The website should have been up and running by now. My apologies. But we'll get there, and I'm pretty confident. On the other hand, thank you to COVID-19 that it'll be out before your term is over. I know that's not necessarily good news for some of you.
Comedian too.
I won't give up my
your day job.
My day job though.
Would you be insulted if I said 2?
Well, that's good.
I'm only kidding.
So the other big investment was the government framework software. I think we knew it before as Cascade. They changed their name in March.
Did they?
They did. And so we started training, getting positive feedback from staff on this. And a lot of things are coming together for them about this happens. Nicole and I have another training session. I think it's Wednesday, but don't hold me to that. And what I want to take away from that is some screenshots for you so that council can see how it's going to work and what some of the dashboard's going to look like. That was delayed, I'm going to say 3 to 4 weeks, and that's because they changed the interface. And it's such a substantial change, they didn't want to start our training, then have to train us again, which I was grateful for. Other than that, yeah, I think we're mostly on target. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Are there any questions for John? We have a motion to receive and file on the
I was just going to
question.
state, Your Worship, with the new website, I think it's more important to have it right than meeting
It
a certain
absolutely
time.
is.
I mean, I absolutely would have loved to have seen it completed before our time is up. But I want to make sure that what we put forward is going to be a very functional and well-used site for the community. So, if it takes a little longer to achieve that, then so be it. So anyway, I just want to commend you on, tracking all of these different, there's a pretty long slate of items that you've been progressing and moving along. I think you've done a pretty good job, especially on, keeping us informed. And it's nice to see that most of these are either on target, completed, or slightly delayed with the plan to get it done. So that's all I was going to offer. Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. And it's important to mention, too, that some of the due dates for a lot of them in here, look at the priorities in Granby Westfield are economic development, quality of life, operational effectiveness, organizational effectiveness, infrastructure, and the environment. So many of them aren't due until quarter 3 or 4, but we're tracking on target for most of it. So on the motion to receive and file, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried, and your item is 15.3, please.
Local government reform.
So certainly, there's a green paper been released for consideration by local communities and local service districts and the province as a whole. And we are been asked to respond to that. We have a response to the green paper at this point. The green paper is just a starting point for to make us think about what we think will work best for the end. They are determined that the date for their recommendations is the end of 2021. So we want to make sure that our concerns are documented and shared with the province. And with that thought in mind, there is a motion there, Council, for your consideration.
I move that the Council of the Town of Granby Westfield accept the report as presented and that it be submitted to the province for consideration.
Second it.
On the question. John, please.
Sorry, if I could just update council. Talking with some of my colleagues, we've addressed some of the issues there. One of the things that we've been discussing is this whole notion of what's an equitable level of service between growing communities and communities that may be declining. And we see this as a significant issue in the future. We don't know that I've really addressed that in this particular report, Your Honor, but I just wanted to bring it up verbally to council that that's a question that we've been discussing, and we don't know how the province is going to manage that. But
Yeah, there's more questions than answers at this time.
there are, yeah.
Certainly. So on the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried, and your item is 15.4, please.
TMR radio purchase.
I move that the Council of the Town of Granby Westfield authorize the fire chief to purchase 2 mobile, 3 base, and 21 portable TMR radios from the Provincial Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. Additionally, to purchase associated TMR radio accessories from the lowest cost vendor for a total cost not to exceed $110,000, including applicable taxes and fees.
Second it.
So on the question, look, we've had to change our network of radios. Certainly the ones that the fire department had been on previously were now redundant. So we began those purchases last year, and this is another phase of the purchase to get the department fully manned with these the new trunk radio system.
And it's
So
a
on
budget.
I'm sorry, Councillor
It's a budgeted
Snyder?
item.
It's absolutely a budgeted item. Councillor Evans, was your hand up?
Well, I just was going to mention that I use these and through my place of employment. We have these type of radios and they've made the new switch and they're fantastic. So they're a key tool. They're digital and there's a lot of advantages to this new system.
That's good feedback. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Anything further? On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried and your item is 15.5, please.
Asphalt Services, 2021.
I'll move that the council of the town of Grand Bay Westfield award the tender for asphalt services 2021 to Classic Construction Company Limited at a price of $139.70 per ton plus HST.
Second it.
On the question, we want to point out that certainly we were able to get 3 bids in for the asphalt, for the supply of asphalt. This does represent the low bid, and just for anybody who's watching's information, it's actually lower than the cost we had last year, $2 a ton, I think, actually lower. So we're in a little bit. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried and your item is 15.6, please.
Acquisition of property located at 4 Bayview Road.
Sir.
I'll move that the council of the town of Grand Bay Westfield revise their offer to purchase a PID number 302-13037 from the province to $4,999 to maintain the property in the land registry system.
Second it.
On the question, certainly council had made its intention to buy this piece of surplus property from the province back, I don't know, about 6 weeks ago now, I suppose. But when they went searching for it, it wasn't in the land registry. So there's new expenses incurred. So even though we had approved an expenditure of a greater amount to the province, we are asking them to reconsider that in acknowledgement of the fact that there's going to have to be some more money spent by us in order to get this job tied up and finished correctly. So the new price that we're offering reflects that commitment. So on the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion's carried and your item is 15.7, please.
Tentative subdivision Douglas Estates, Shannon Road.
So council, we've had a lot to deal with respect to this item. There is a motion for your consideration here, however. And there's actually 2 motions, and we can either do them separately. That'll be up to the mover or the seconder, whichever, or the mover, please. Perhaps we'll do them separately, please.
I'll move that the council of the town of Grand Bay Westfield accept $1,469.60 by cash, money order, certified check, or debit as money in lieu of land for public purposes for Douglas Estates subdivision lot 17-4, lot 17-5, lot 17-6, and lot 17-7 to create 3 new building lots out of PID number 30331656 as shown on tentative subdivision plan provided by JPW Holdings, Bryce Ward, subject to the following conditions before considering approval of a final subdivision plan. 1, recording of civic numbers on the final subdivision plan, and 2, recording 5-meter wide utilities easement on the Shannon Road frontage as required by public utilities.
Is there a seconder?
Good.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion's carried. And further?
Further move that whereas the Planning Advisory Committee has recommended that the approval of Douglas Estates subdivision lot 17-4, lot 17-5, lot 17-6, and lot 17-7 be subject to the requirement that there is compliance with an engineered water drainage plan, and whereas at the time of application for development of the lots, there will be a requirement for this on the site plan to show lot grading, ensuring surface water is directed away from new construction, And whereas the objective of the site plan and construction is to demonstrate that surface water will move down and then away from the foundation and should exit the property to be transferred to a storm drainage system. And whereas this is to be achieved without changing exterior grades around the perimeter of the property, and whereas the Building Code of Canada requires storm drainage to be directed to a ditch, a storm drain, or a dry well at least 5 meters away from the structures, and whereas the approval of the Douglas Estates subdivision will not cause any further issues with respect to water drainage that may already exist, that the Council of the Town of Granby Westfield not implement the recommendation from the Planning Advisory Committee concerning a requirement that there is compliance with an engineered water drainage plan.
Second it.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. On the question,
Got your question.
Councillor Bailmans?
I hope Mr. Ward works with the residents on Shannon Road. That's all I hope for.
Thank you, Councillor Bailmans. Councillor Evans?
I just want to say, I think there's the reading all the documents, watching this, everything, and looking at this situation. I think that there's a good balance here that requires make sure that Mr. Ward is a good citizen and there's some protection for those landowners. We need to get development, and at the time of variance is not the place to be having that battle. I think
exactly right.
One thing that concerns me is a lot of people in their conversations mention, well, you might need or you have to need. Well, we deal in exacts, so I guess that's what we rely on staff to find out. Wawa permits, the province has to tell us. We don't make these as we go along. So I think this balances their concerns, because we don't, like, I live this for 10 years with water drain all over my property. It's not fun. So anyway, thank you.
Is there anything further? Councillor Snodgrass, please.
Yeah, and again, I guess just to touch, on the comments I made previously, again, and I echo Councillor Bailman's comment, that I hope Mr. Ward will work with the residents and the town to ensure that there's, adequate drainage to get the water off the property without negatively impacting his neighbors. I've seen nothing to demonstrate that he wouldn't do that. Everything I watched in the PAC meeting proceedings, and his responses to those questions certainly would indicate that, that should not be an issue. But we got to be mindful of the fact that, Granby Westfield is a hill essentially, and most of the development has occurred down by the water, which is at the bottom of that hill. To prevent development simply because of water drainage concerns is going to not serve this community well. We need to grow. We need the tax revenues, and we just need to find ways to mitigate and work together. And I think I'm absolutely confident that our staff will continue to guide the next council on how to ensure that continues into the future, and that we're looking out for everybody's best interests, including those that exist now and those that will be coming in the future. So anyway, that's my comments there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Snodgrass. Anybody else? Then I'll just finish for the record too, because it's pretty clear that this has been a contentious item. However, I think that there has been some confusion as to what the item was, frankly, that we were dealing with and how those items are dealt with. It's important to acknowledge that what originally went to PAC on April 6th was a request for a variance. That's it. It was a request for a variance. And once the subdivision was considered, then you had to deal with land for public purposes. There were no development approvals required. In fact, as I indicated earlier, the 8 acres that is owned by Mr. Ward didn't even require him to come back to council. He already meets all of the requirements to build a home in Granby Westfield. We are open to people coming and building homes in Granby Westfield, and we want more of that to occur. So I hope everybody understands the explanation. If we've tried to lay it out for you, because I do really generally feel that there's been a lot of confusion around this item. So since we've all made our comments and there are nothing more, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Thank you, Council, and thank you, Mr. Ward. We're going to move then to item 15.7. Or 15.8, I guess it is. Put my glasses back on.
Tarp South Rentals.
So there's another good news story there.
Yeah, it is. I'll move that the council of the town of Grand Bay Westfield enter into a licensing agreement with Tarps Off River Rentals to locate their business in the cove south of the River Center parking lot for a fee of $6.48 per day from May 20, 2021 to September 10, 2021 for a total of $732.18 per the attached licensing agreement.
Second.
Thank you. On the question, John, did you want to speak to that? I think you had some dealings with that.
Yeah, I met with Mr. Members of the leadership team met with Mr. Wilson, and we had a good meeting. He's very much looking forward to going. He was disappointed he wasn't able to get it up off the ground. I think it was a couple of seasons ago, but he's ready to go now, and he sees himself and Outdoors MB see themselves as complementaries. Not as in competition with another. So hopefully we'll have a busy Brundage Point this year, and some of our local businesses will be able to get some of the spin-off business as well. So it's good news.
Thank you, John. Before I call the question, I just wanted to ask one question about this, because when I was reading, like everyone else, I think this is a wonderful thing to inspire activity at Brundage Point. How are they getting down over the side of the hill to the cove? I mean, that's pretty steep there. Are they coming, yes, from the parking lot, but then it's pretty steep down into the cove there because he's doing the wharf, huh?
Yeah, he's building a floating dock, I assume is what it would be.
Yes, I would assume so too. When I read it, I assumed that was it, but it still left me wondering how you're getting over that grassed hill down to that dock, because that's a pretty slippery proposition, I'm betting.
Yeah, offhand, I'm not sure. That's not one of the things that came up for discussion.
Yes, well, I guess I'm going to caution staff to have a look at that to make sure that can be accessed safely.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Duly noted. Deputy Mayor, please.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. We have more activity up in that area. My only concern would be we've got the boat launching going on, which constantly is an issue with parking and managing that. On the upriver side of the ferry, we've got the canoe and kayak, which is going to draw more traffic and more attention, people parking. And now with this third entry, we may want to reconsider having one of our students. I mean, that it's going to be even more controversial about parking up there because it is very limited. And we may want to look at putting some control in place. Policing it is going to be one issue, but just notifying people and trying to control traffic somehow should be a priority for the manager of the River Center, in my opinion.
Duly noted. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. John, please.
So Mr. Wilson indicated he's going to try to direct his customers to park across the road and south of the general store. It's near the school. There's some vacant land there.
There is. We have some vacant land. The SO, we've always talked about it, Council, as you know, as an overflow potentially, so that we didn't have our rentals, that all of the cars weren't interfering with people who perhaps are parked there overnight or out for extended stays or something. And then
there's also some parking availability for Outdoors MB near where they're going to be located. So hopefully between those two, they'll be split a little bit separate, but I totally agree with your concern. The other concern that we addressed in our leadership team meeting today, Deputy Mayor, was the aesthetic quality of Brundage Point. We now will have a shelter for Outdoors MB, in addition to a shelter for Tarps Off Rentals, in addition to our storage unit, in addition to our Visitors Information Center. So in our conversation today, I asked our manager up there that we need to start consider the aesthetic component of Brundage Point and what should we be looking at to ensure that as we generate more activity, we still have the facilities, but that the facilities don't detract from Brundage Point itself and the view and the vista it has, and just the experience of being able to go up there, enjoy the breeze, enjoy the view. So that's something that we're going to be reviewing this year, and hopefully we'll be able to take something to the new council for 2022 or 2023, depending on what we find. But we have to maintain the fact that it's a good experience there. It has good aesthetic quality, and we don't want to lose that.
No, well said, John, and absolutely correct. So on the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried, and we're going to move. I want to stop. Mr. Ward, I see you have your hand up, but I'm sorry. Just as I said to the other group, your item is passed, so we'll be moving along with the agenda. But if there's someone you'd like to speak to afterwards, please feel free to do so. I'm going to move to item 16, please.
Mental Health Week 2021 proclamation.
I'll make a proclamation for Mental Health Week 2021. Whereas mental health is an essential part of everyone's health and well-being. Whereas Mental Health Week has been hosted by the Canadian Mental Health Association in communities across Canada for 7 years. Whereas all people of Canada need to promote, protect, and nurture their mental health. And whereas promoting social connection is an important aspect of human life and an effective way to protect mental health. Whereas in the days of COVID-19 pandemic, our community members may be experiencing further difficulties maintaining their mental health. And whereas in the days of social distancing, we are the community are experiencing great challenges to maintain our social connections. And whereas the municipality of Granby Westfield has the responsibility to promote mental wellness, particularly at a time of increased social distancing and social isolation. Now, therefore, be it revised that Town of Granby Westfield hereby proclaims the week of May 3rd to May 9th, 2021 as CMHA Mental Health Week. I encourage all citizens to join me in underlining the importance of social connection and mental health.
Second it.
Thank you, Councillor Evans and Councillor Bailmans. It was, as you guys would all know, it's not our practice to do proclamations. There are so many that they become meaningless. But look, it was pretty clear that after over a year of COVID, that a proclamation exclaiming the importance of good mental health was a valuable reconsideration. So thank you. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried, and your item is 17, please.
Census 2021.
And there's another resolution for your consideration there.
Be it resolved that the Council of Granby Westfield supports the 2021 census and encourages all residents to complete their census questionnaire online at www.census.gc.ca. Accurate and complete census data support programs and services that benefit our community.
Second it.
Thank you. On the question, again, another proclamation, but I appreciate the opportunity to stress to our community how very, very important it is to be counted. I mean, they say that in the commercial all the time, but it really does speak to the funding that your community and your province gets from the country once they have a full and absolute understanding of how many people live here and the implications of such. So thank you for considering that as well. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried, and your item is 18, please.
Westfield Recreation Project Plan.
I'd make a motion that we refer this item to staff to report back to council upon the completion of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and at the conclusions of the local governance reforms that have been established.
Second it.
On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. And we have an item 18A, special council meeting. I wasn't sure if you had it, Nicole. Did you? Oh, good. So I would look up.
Make a motion that we hold a special council meeting on May 7th, 2021. 12. Do you want the time, John? 12 noon on Friday?
Yes, please.
Exactly 12 noon or 12:05 or.
So moved.
Whatever you like. John, do you have a preference?
No, this is for council. Some of them may not be able to leave work right.
Yeah. Do you need it's you guys? Those of you who are working, do you need a few minutes, or can you 12 o'clock? Do you need 10 after? What do you need?
I can do that on the question.
I'm sorry.
You'd say 12 o'clock. I'm good with 12 o'clock.
Councillor Snodgrass?
I'm good.
Good. 12 o'clock it is. On the question, John will arrange the Zoom, and you'll all have an invite prior to the May 7th. On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. And item 19?
Adjournment.
So moved.
On the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried and we are adjourned at 8:56. Thank you, council.